What's up, people? I am back for another video. We are back for another, I guess episode, if you want to call it that, of top movies of now. We're in 1980. We're officially done with the 80s, which the 80s was fun, but now we're in the 90s, which the 90s had so many classics, especially when we get closer to like the mid 90s, mid to late 90s, basically. It gets so much better. So but today we're in 1990, and I didn't realize the amount of sequels there were, like number twos. Like my top five is like number twos, like all number twos. Like one through five is basically all number twos, and then you had a three with Back to the Future Part Three. So I felt like it wasn't hard to make this list. I actually was able to make 10. It was crazy. So next week is 91. I can't wait till we get to 97 because 97, that was a banger of a year in the 90s. Like Lost World, Men in Black, fucking Event Horizon, Starship Troopers. I mean, that's just a lot in one year. So I can't wait till we get there. But let's get into this year. Tomorrow I'll be doing License to Kill. So another continuing on with the Bonds. I think we're pretty much. If I'll look and see, but if I'm right, I think next week we're starting the Brosnan ones. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure after Roger Moore, after Timothy Dalton, it's Pierce Brosnan. So we're starting the Pierce Brosnan ones. To me, he's my second favorite Bond. He was the Bond when I was coming up as a kid. I mean, I think I did see World Is Not Enough as a kid in theaters because it was like 3 when that one came out. So I think it was like 99. I definitely saw Die Another Day in theaters, which is, that was the last one. But I know some people don't love that. I remember liking it at the time, but I haven't watched it since. So I don't know if it will age well. We'll see. But I'll talk about that's all next soon when we get into beers. But tomorrow I'll be doing License to Kill. But other than that, let's get into my top 10 movies of 1990. Of 1990, number 10 is Class of 1999. This is a movie that a lot of people probably don't know. Basically, the premise is the school is so bad, like, if you remember movies like where the school is so bad, like, there's like crime and all this shit. It's like, if you remember Lean on Me, think of like a sci-fi version of that. So the principals basically assign cyborg teachers, one of them being Pam Grier, who basically are supposed to enforce the law, but then obviously it goes wrong and they start just killing kids. And I'll admit, the one thing, the characters aren't that memorable. You're not necessarily watching for the characters. The characters are fine, like they're serviceable, but I'm not like I'll remember their name or anything. They're just kind of just there. I do like that ending where they do rally the school up to stand up to these machines. But yeah, I like it. It's an interesting premise. They made a second one, which don't watch it. It's bad. It almost like the fat one. There's like only one. I like that in this one. There's like multiple cyber teachers. I think there was like three, at least three or four. And but the kills are great. It's a fun little flick. It's on Tubi if you have it. Like I said, it's not a lot of people know it, but it's an interesting premise. They really make you feel like, okay, this is an extreme. You kind of understand, at least in a sense, why these principals had to. The school was bad, so it made sense. It was a believable premise. So, and it doesn't feel like a Terminator ripoff because this was, a couple years of the first one, and the second was about to come out in a year. So that's my number 10, sorry. My number 9 now is Kindergarten Cop. This is one of my favorite Arnold movies. This is one of those where it really showed Arnold's variety. Like, at this point, he was just seen as an action guy, but he showed he can do comedy. Like, and even the action hero he plays, because he's a cop, isn't like isn't like, he's not like the traditional badass like his characters, like, he's not like John Matrix and Commando, right? But I still love it. I love how funny it is. One of my favorite scenes: boys have a penis, girls have a vagina, and it's not a tumor. It really showed like Arnold's variety as an actor at this time, especially because up until this point it was like all action movies he had really done. So for him to show he could do comedy and it still have an action tone, like obviously they're fighting scenes a little couple times. The scene where he beats the shit out of the abusive dad is great. I love the little romance he has with the other teacher. It's just a great film all around. I watch it a lot, and yeah, it's the fact that like it came out and it worked. Like you would think, like, oh, it's Arnold trying to do comedy. Like probably people weren't used to it at the time, like, because he's about to do T2 at this point, and I think Total Recall, if I remember, was I think 90. It was relatively close to this coming out, so it's like crazy to see Arnold doing stuff like that, and it's like, oh no, now he's doing comedy, and it worked. So yeah, one of my favorite Arnold movies. Number 8, sorry, is Rocky 5. This is one, it's a lot of Rocky fans do not like this one, and I'm not going to disagree, and I'm not going to try to argue. For me, I think it's decent. Even as a kid, I've never looked at it as a bad movie. I looked at it as not a great one, and it's definitely worse of the Rocky movies, like the weaker of the Rocky movies, but I never like hated this one. I like the kid who played his son. I like that stuff. I like Rocky basic. Granted, I watched it before Creed was ever a thing, but I like the idea of him being a manager, and the fact that they set it up for it to happen in Creed worked. It's just Tommy Gunn was just not likable, and it's like I kind of think they could have executed that better, and I think they probably could say that's the point, but you could have did that a bit better. Maybe have it be a slower building. In a weird way, they did it better with Jonathan Majors' character in Creed in a way, where at least he seemed, at least from the beginning, he's still somewhat likable. Like when you're introduced to him, yeah, he wants a lot, but he's still somewhat likable. In a way, he doesn't just come on like Tommy Gunn just from the jump is just not likable. So I think they should have at least got an actor who could portray being likable at first, and obviously maybe down the line he gets worse, and maybe when he gets a real moment of a championship, then you have a moment where he. I think that'd be my only tweak, but I still relatively have fun with it. I like the darker tone it has. Maybe they didn't execute this well, but I do like that it somewhat tries to go like back to the first one. Even the way Rocky dresses, he kind of dresses like he did in the first one. Kind of. I think, and some people probably just don't like it because it's not as like. Don't me wrong, I love Rocky 4, but it's not as bombastic and the final fight's bad. I won't defend that. I think that dragged too long. Should have been like 5 minutes. Maybe Tommy gets some good shots on Rocky, but Rocky ends up winning. It should not have went as long as it did. Especially when Rocky beat up fucking Drago the film before. He beat up this big ass Russian. Yeah, it took a lot, but he still won. And you're having me believe he can't beat this guy? Like, come on. They should not have dragged it as long as it did, but aside from that, I do like Rocky 4, and I do like the element of that darker film. Like, yeah, 4 is a high, so at the start of this one, yeah, he loses a lot of his money. He's not as rich anymore, so he has to kind of go back to his roots. I think, but I can understand people are saying maybe it should have just been kind of like what Rocky Balboa did, just have it be him in the last fight. But I do like the management role. I just think maybe they could have got someone better to play Tommy Gunn. But aside from that, I enjoy this film. I definitely, I can still watch it. Would I definitely go through like the franchise? It's definitely the weakest one, but. Number 7, Back to the Future 3. Part 3. This is one that I would say is probably the weakest of 3, but I do love it. I love that the way they're able to balance being like a Back to the Future movie, but it's also a Western. Like, yeah, the scenes with Marty and Doc definitely have that Back to the Future feel, but when they're in like other parts of this, of that world, of that city, it definitely feels like you're in a Western movie. Like, they actually captured it. It doesn't just feel like, oh, it's just a Western aesthetic, but it doesn't. They actually try to make it feel like a Western. They even kind of shoot it like one. So I do like that. It's just not as strong as the first two, but I have fun with it. I definitely love the way they end the story. I like the 1885 setting. You know, it was a nice change of pace. I love Biff, and Biff actually feels like a threat. Like, I would say of the 3 films, this is probably the one where I'd say, you know, obviously you still have that scene where he, you know, flies into shit like in the other 2, but he does feel like a threat in this legit at times. He doesn't just feel like a joke villain, kind of like, even in the second one, he still had that feeling a little. I mean, and it made sense for those movies, but like, no, like, because he ends up killing Doc, so that's why I think Marty still has to stop it. Also, kind of like that it works because it immobilizes the DeLorean. You know, you're in 1885. There's no fucking fuel like that, and there weren't cars yet, so they have to figure out a way to get the DeLorean to move because there's no fucking fuel. You know, so I like that. It's a believable way to get the DeLorean to not work. So I love this film. You know, you did the future in the second movie, so they're like, okay, let's go in the past. So I love this one. To me, this wraps the story. Don't get me wrong, I like the game, but to me, I kind of look at that as loose canon, as if like this is a what if they did a 4th movie. But for me, I do kind of look at 3 as like where it ends for me. It wraps it up perfectly. Doc goes off and, you know, with his family. You know, Marty now is doing his life, kind of now able to just relax now. I love it. So it's definitely a solid. Now, number 6 is Tremors. I fucking love this movie. This is one of my favorite creature features. I love the look of the worms. The worms are just, the look of the worms are iconic. Fucking Bert. You have Fred Ward's in it. You have Kevin Bacon. Just in a great ensemble cast. Yeah, it is a bit more like of a comedy, but it does take itself seriously. Like, the worms are still fucking scary. They're fucking scary. Like, they do treat them with serious, compared to Starship Troopers, where I feel like the bugs in that like they do have moments, but I do feel like they're more like just cannon fodder. Like, the worms, they actually try to make fucking scary. Like they actually do try to do as genuine horror moments. But I love the cast. I love the chemistry. Bert is a great character. Bert Gummer, you know, it's iconic. He's like the face of the franchise, but Kevin Bacon's great. Because at the time, you know, Kevin Bacon was up and coming. But I love this movie. I watch it yearly. I like all of them. I think this is a franchise where I would say watch up until 4. They're all great. Probably skip the last 2. Like, they're not that great. They changed the design and like, yeah, no. But I do like the first 4 movies. So, and Bert's a great character. He kind of sets him up in a way. Sorry about this fucking light. But yeah, I had to put Tremors on here. So. Number 4, top 5 now. We're top 5 territory. Now, basically all the number 2s now. Number 5 is Gremlins 2. The New Batch. To me, I've always loved this movie. It's not as strong as the first one, but I do love how it builds up the lore on the Mogwai and the Gremlins. Like, it was cool they brought Gizmo back. It sucks Mr. Wong died, but they bring Billy back. But he works at this business. And I love, like I said, they build on the lore. Because Christopher Lee's in it. He has a cameo in it as one of the doctors. They've been experimenting with, sorry. Fucking hell. So, obviously, one of them makes with a tarantula because we get a spider mohawk, which was great. I love the fucking nod to Rambo, First Blood Part 2, because there's a scene where fucking Gizmo puts on a bandana like Rambo. It's fucking great. Brain Gremlin is one of my favorites. I love a gremlin that can actually talk. And I love how they amped up the gremlins. Like, because that scene in the first movie where they're like all just going loose is already big enough. So they're like, okay, we'll go bigger. But I like it in the building. So I like that they kind of self-contained it, but it still worked. The fucking Brain Gremlin on the show was awesome. I just all around love. I think this is a great sequel. It's, like I said, not as strong as the first one, but I think that's the theme with a lot of these sequels, basically from here on, from 5 and up, is they carry they're perfect sequels. That's what a sequel should do, is you build on the lore and you expand it. And they did that perfectly with the different types of gremlins and different looks. And Billy still works as a character. Like, movies like this is more about the gremlins than, let's say, like the human. But Billy's still a great character all around. Same with his girlfriend, but yeah. So that's my number 5. Number 4, RoboCop 2. RoboCop 2, to me, is another case of not as strong as the first one, but I do love it. It builds on the lore of the OCP. Sorry. I don't know why I was thinking OCPD, but OCP. I love Kane as a villain. Not as strong as Boddicker, but he still works. Robo Kane's awesome. You get a fucking kaiju fight kind of in the end. Like, or a superhero movie fight where you got fucking Robo Kane versus RoboCop. The Robo Kane design in general is great. That scene where Robo Kane just goes loose and fucks people up is fucking great. And it's the way it's lit, too. I like the scene where they torture RoboCop. Like, not as iconic as the original scene, but in the original movie, but it works here. And they build up RoboCop's character. The scenes where he goes, to his house and you get to actually see his wife. One thing I wish from this film, I do think I wanted to see more of his wife. Maybe like one other scene, but aside from that, I think this is a perfect sequel. Dr. Fax is fucking hateable. Like, you want her to get her, so. But overall, it's a great sequel. So it follows up RoboCop perfectly. Builds on the lore. Cool fight at the end. RoboCop kind of fighting like a matchup for himself, because besides the fight with with the Ed 209, which that fight didn't necessarily last long, like this fight did. Like, it didn't go in the city. The Ed 209 like tripped on stairs. So I do like that we kind of got to see RoboCop in a way kind of go let loose. I'm probably not gonna put RoboCop 3 in whatever year it came out. I know it was 90s, but can't remember the exact year right now. But RoboCop 3 will definitely not be on the list, but I do love this one. I think it's a perfect sequel. It knows what it is. So number 3 is Die Hard with a Vengeance, Die Hard 2, Die Harder. This is one a lot of people either don't like or kind of ignore, because it's sandwiched between a lot of people's eyes, two best. Die Hard 1, which to me is the best one, and then Die Hard 3 with a Vengeance, or Die Hard with a Vengeance, which I love that one, but it's my second favorite. I think that first one is just still so iconic. But I've seen people who say 3 is the best one, so it's unfortunately sandwiched between those, so it does kind of get forgotten. But I do like it. It changes up the aspect of like now you're not just in a building. I like that there's a plane. It's in a plane. The only aspect is Stewart is weak as a villain. I love William Sadler, but he just kind of weak as a villain. He just wasn't as compelling as Hans or Simon from With a Vengeance. I think that's like the biggest weakest aspect about the movie. But I do love more McClane. I actually like that it brings a lot of characters back. We get Powell back for a couple scenes. We get Holly there. I think it's like the last one we actually see her in, because she doesn't come in the third one. I think he calls her in the third one, but he doesn't, you don't actually see her. So I do like that you get to see her kind of one last time. They even bring back the asshole news reporter from the first one. So I do like they bring a couple characters back. I like the action in it. So overall, it's a fun sequel. It's just sandwiched between the two best in the franchise. So it gets overlooked often, but I like it. I know Robert Patrick's in it. I like him as a villain, and like I said, the action's good. And I like that you're out. As much as I like the building setting and it contained in the first one, it works. Okay, now we get to see kind of McClane in the wild. Now you're not just in a building. So, and it's still a Christmas movie. Like you still have that. That's the other thing I like. I do like the snow. There's a lot of snow in this movie, so it works for it. So they really do capture that Christmas feel, because it's not just in like LA where it's snow. I think they're actually in New York. So yeah, I still love it. So it's just not as good as the other two. But my number 2, is Child's Play 2. This is my favorite Child's Play movie. I love the original. Original is probably objectively the better movie. But what I love about Child's Play 2, one of my favorite aspects is Andy's isolated. Like I said, I'm a fan of isolation horror. It's not isolation horror in that sense, but in the first one, he had his mom as a security blanket. There is no security blanket in this one, because he's in foster care. No one believes his story. Even the therapist he talks to at the beginning of the movie just kind of listens. He's just listening, but he clearly doesn't believe him. Just like, kind of thing. So, I actually think Alex Vincent really, I didn't, he was a kid in the first one, so it was fine, but I actually thought in this one he's really good. And I hate his foster parents. I think they're pieces of shit. Like, the dad clearly didn't want him from the beginning, and the mom only cared because he thought he was his son. The moment he died, she turns on him. So I'm happy they died. At least the dad he saw die. He didn't see his mom, but at least they kind of get theirs. But Kyle's a great character. But I love that aspect, because now Andy's on his own. He doesn't have someone who fucking believes him. It's just, I love the scene in the school where Chucky kills at the school, and the music. I actually think I love the music. Chucky's at his most iconic in this movie. And like I said, they expand the lore. And like I said, the biggest aspect, there's no one who believes him now. No one's on his side. His mom's not there anymore. You have these foster parents who clearly don't give a shit about him. Kyle's like the only one who cares about him, and then and I love the factory. That's actually one of my favorite things, is the factory setting in the final act. Sorry about this fucking fly. Sorry about that. I don't even know why it's here. It's fucking nighttime, but anyway, I love the factory. And then the fucking moment where Chucky realizes he's fucking too late, and the moment when I watched this as a kid, when he's like fucking like covered in like plastic, like melted plastic, and he's still moving, fucked me up as a kid. It's like, because it reminded me of when he's on fire in the first movie, like he's just like all burnt. So I just love it. Great sequel. It to me is my favorite Chucky movie. It's the one I like often watch the most. Between this one and the first one, but I do watch this one a lot. I don't know if I'm gonna put Child's Play 3 in 91. I probably will. Like, I know a lot of people don't. I'll talk about it a little bit here since I guess it's since I on topic of Child's Play 2 because they come out a year apart. Child's Play 3 is so a lot. There are people who hate it because it's just not as strong as the first two. It's a case of not as strong as the first two, but I think it's a fine entry. The guy they got to play Andy is fine. He's just not as good as Alex Vincent, but it's understandable. And timeline wise, he's supposed to be older. Like, that's probably why they should not have released this so close. Maybe they should have waited a couple years, but I get it. So they released it a year later because probably Child's Play 2 did great. So they're like, okay, we're just gonna release it a year later. But Alex Vincent's still a kid. He's probably just gonna be a year older. So they're like, okay, we gotta recast. And I think for me, I was fine with him. It's not as great. I still think it's fine. I probably will put it on the list, but it'll probably not be high. But it's a decent entry for me. So there's parts in it I like. I still think Chucky has moments. It's just not as strong of an entry compared to some of the other ones, especially after it's in it. I think it's another case. It's sandwiched because between two good ones, you got Child's Play 2, and then the one after is Bride of Chucky. So it's just sandwiched between way better films. But I'm fine with Child's Play 3. So that's my quick little thing on Child's Play 3. I'll definitely talk about it more next week because it'll be on my list for 91. But Child's Play 2 is my number 2. My number 1 is Predator 2. To me, this is one I have never understood the hate for Predator 2. I never actually knew Predator 2 got hate. Like, I remember watching it and being like, oh, I've always loved it. Like, it's not the first movie, but I always loved it. I like Mike Kerrigan as a character. I love the LA setting. It makes sense that they changed it. It expands the Yautja lore. One, we find out that they're different versions. Like, even just without seeing the other ones later on, in the end. Like, the one in this one looks different from the first one. Like, the helmet looks different. It scales even from, even certain shots. You can tell, it looks a little bit different. And it actually has more they even give new weapons, like the net that could cut through the disc. So it's just like that alone is why I love it. But I like Harrigan as a character. Yeah, he's not Arnold, but I think it makes sense to change. You don't want to just do a retread of the first movie, and I actually like that they didn't do that. I love that they still keep the great music though, and the lore is still accurate. It's still consistent, like, the Predators, where there's a lot of heat. And I actually thought the city made for a good setting because we got some great shots, like the Predator just walking on fucking this puddle, where on one side you can actually see it, and it's still camouflaged on the other. It's awesome when he killed King Willie. One, it also showed that Predator and fucking Alien are fucking the same canon. Like, yeah, there are comics, but on film, you saw a xenomorph skull and its plethora of skulls on it. Shit, that's the other thing. You get to see its ship. Like, they really expanded. I actually really like the final fight between the Predator and Harrigan. I love how long it went, and I love the moments where the Predator actually talks when Danny tries to say, "What ugly motherfucker?" Predator says, "Motherfucker," and it was actually funny. It wasn't like cringy, because this is one of those scenes. If they filmed this now, they would probably be cringe, but the way they were able to make it funny and it not feel like force. Motherfucker. And even the moment when it says shit, when they're on the side of the building, like, I actually think it's genuinely a funny movie. Bill Paxton's great. The scene on the fucking subway where the Predator's just killing everybody, it's awesome. I love the film. I actually think I love that it keeps the same tone as the first one. I don't love the score. Alan Silvestri's score is still fucking there. Because I think that's the one thing about the later Predator films I've always kind of had a problem with. Predators, I think, has it, but not a lot. But I still think it's there. But it's like kind of after this movie, really, they don't have that same Silvestri score though. They try to tweak it. I understand, like with the Jurassic Park score, they tweak it sometimes, and sometimes it works, but there are times it doesn't because we're still not recognized. But that Silvestri score, I almost think you didn't have to. That's actually the one thing I like that this movie didn't do. And if they didn't tweak it, they did a good job of hiding it because it really just feels like the same score from the first movie. But they're like, no, we don't really need to change it. It's already good. So I kind of like that. So all around, Predator 2 is great. I don't get the hate for it. To me, it may not be as strong as the first one, but it's almost up there. So that's why it's my favorite of the year. That final fight, just like I said, between Harrigan and Predator is awesome. So, but yeah, Predator 2 is my number one. Number one for 91 is gonna be Terminator 2. I mean, I can't wait to talk about that. 91 is gonna be fun. I got Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey is gonna be on there. Last Boy Scout. That's actually an underrated movie. I reviewed that a while ago, but that's one of my very underrated Stallone. I mean, not Stallone. Fucking Bruce Willis movies. So I can't wait to talk about that next week. But yeah, I'm loving this series. So, but tomorrow I will be doing License to Kill. So continuing on with the Bond franchise. But I'll be cheersing out, and I'll talk to y'all later. But as usual, talk to y'all tomorrow. Peace.